All right. With that, Matt, I think we're ready to go. So I'll turn it over to you.
Excellent. Thank you, Matt. Appreciate it. Hello, everybody. This is Matt Hobrick. I'm the chair of the AASHTO Subcommittee on Asset Management, and I want to welcome you to Webinar 62 in our Transportation Asset Management webinar series, sponsored by Federal Highway and AASHTO. The topic of today's webinar is the upcoming TRB TAM Conference. We have presented webinars in this series every 2 months going back to 2012 on a variety of topics in asset management. For more information on this webinar series, visit tam-portal.com. That's TAM, T-A-M-portal.com. From there, click Events in the main menu to register for any webinar. You will also find archives of previous webinars, and links to videos and slides from today's webinar will be posted to the site. This is the home of the AASHTO Subcommittee on Asset Management. For information on the subcommittee, visit tam-portal.com and click on Subcommittee on Asset Management under the Community menu. If you have any suggestions on future webinar topics or have questions for the presenters during today's webinar, please submit your comments or questions using Zoom's chat feature. We will answer questions during the Q&A session at the end of the webinar. Time permitting, we'll invite the audience members to unmute and ask questions during the Q&A session. Until then, we hope you'll be careful to keep your audio connection muted. If you haven't already, please be sure to mute your audio so our presenters are not interrupted. Thank you. That covers most of the logistics for today's webinar. So now I'd like to turn it over to Tasha Clemens of Federal Highway.
Good afternoon or good morning to everyone joining us today. I'm Tasha Clemens with the Federal Highway Administration, and I'm representing the Transportation Performance and Asset Management team. The Federal Highway Administration, in cooperation with the AASHTO Subcommittee on Asset Management, is very pleased to sponsor this webinar series. We feel it's a great way to bring people together around a series of important topics and to connect with the asset management community. We have a great team of speakers who are planning the TRB TAM Conference on the agenda today, who are going to give us a preview of what we will experience in July. I'm very excited to say, however, that with this webinar, the TRB TAM Conference preview, we have reached the 62nd webinar in our series. The Federal Highway Administration team of asset management would also like to highlight that the upcoming TRB TAM Conference is an opportunity to learn more about asset management decision-making from your peers. This conference will be the 14th National Conference on Transportation Asset Management. A major focus, however, of the TAM Conference will be developing actionable asset management plans that integrate across agency processes to inform decision-making. So today's webinar is an important platform for you to hear what to expect from the upcoming conference. The Federal Highway Administration Asset Management Team is committed to increasing knowledge and capabilities at transportation agencies across the U.S. So I would encourage you to visit us online to be more informed of all of the activities and resources we have available to support you. And you should be able to see our link on the screen. And finally, I just want to say that you are going to enjoy today's presentation. So now I would like to turn it over to Matt Hardy of SpyPond Partners to give an overview of today's webinar, to review today's agenda, as well as to introduce our speakers. Hi, Matt.
Hi, Tasha. Thank you for that. Yeah, it's Matt Hardy with SpyPond Partners. Want to go over a few things. First one is the objectives of the webinar, what you hopefully get out of it, the webinar, and then mention an upcoming opportunity for an NCHRP research project, a hackathon that people can participate in. As Matt Hobrick mentioned previously, the purpose of the webinar series in general is to share lessons learned, ideas, and knowledge with the asset management community. And as Tasha mentioned, this is number 62 in our webinar series. I remember when we had the first one back in 2011. I think that's when the first one was. We can go back and kind of look at it on the TAM portal. I'm curious what I looked like back then, almost 13 years ago. But there's been a great series, I think, so far, and hopefully it'll keep on going. But we do try to have learning objectives and a purpose for each of these webinars. So for this webinar, more specifically, the primary learning objectives are getting the word out about the upcoming TAM conference. So again, the 14th TRB TAM conference taking place July 8th through the 11th. 10th in Boston, Massachusetts. We're going to preview some of the various tracks that have been organized at the conference, and then preview some of the go a little more in depth into some of the actual conference sessions. And the conference has lots of different sort of formats and sessions, from workshops, peer exchanges, technical sessions, posters, all that good stuff that Laura's going to give us an overview of in a minute. And hopefully at the conference, you can share. Well, the people are going to be sharing lessons learned, ideas, knowledge, and hopefully you'll be able to absorb those lessons learned, ideas, and knowledge, and take that back and take action on it in some way. So that's for today's webinar. The agenda, sort of a jam-packed agenda, so we're going to try to keep everybody on time. So we start off by hearing from Matt Haubrich and Tasha Clemens. And then very briefly, the presenters that we have to sort of detail more of the conference content. First, we're going to have Laura Zale, who's the planning committee chair for the conference. She'll give us an introduction, kind of overview of all the great content that'll be part of the conference. And then Mike Johnson from Caltrans, he's going to talk more specifically on the peer exchange that's taking place. This is geared for state DOTs, and he'll talk more about that and opportunities for state DOTs to participate in that peer exchange happening on Saturday and Sunday. And then Laura Zale will come back and give us a preview of the Saturday and Sunday workshops and the organizing for TAM track. Matt Haubrich will present on the actionable TAMPS track. Emily Burns is going to present on the risk and resilience track. Victor Rivas will give us a preview of the sustainability track. And then finally, Jack Moran, as our host, state host representative, will give us a sneak peek of what to look forward to in Boston. It's going to be great weather, I know that, and he'll sort of talk about some of those other activities that we can do as part of that conference. And if you have any questions, if you have any answers to those questions, feel free to put those in the chat. That's where we'll sort of capture them, and at the very end, we'll try to get those answered for you. So again, please use that Q&A functionality. And in response to some of the more frequently asked questions, if you want to pass this recording on to somebody else, we will be posting it to the TAM portal, tam-portal.com, and we'll also have the slide deck available for you as well. Before I hand it over to Laura to get us started, I do want to mention an opportunity, I think, we're trying something new, I think, within NCHRP and sort of the research community. Many of you have probably heard about hackathons. So we're going to try this with the update, NCHRP 08-137. I know the numbers don't mean a lot, but that's the update to the digital edition of the AASHTO Transportation Asset Management Guide. So a hackathon, there's a definition down there, an event in which many people meet to engage in collaborative computer programming. We're going to try this out and see how we can get concepts, examples, proof of concepts, prototypes of how we can make that digital edition of the AASHTO Transportation Asset Management Guide better. We have some areas, the consultant team comprised of SpyPond partners, AppTech, and then WSP. We have content and everything that's going to be provided in an updated digital guide edition. We have some areas that we want to focus on for improvements, but we want your ideas and concepts and everything about how we can make it even better. So typically a hackathon has a certain time frame to it. For this one, it's going to go from June 5th through June 11th. You can form teams, you can do it individually, but the idea is that you can kind of look at some of the data, the examples that we'll post to the hackathon website. You can download that and you can come up with, again, with your own concepts and then submit those. and we'll have a series of judges that'll judge the submissions. We'll make an announcement at the TRB TAM Conference and give an opportunity for the highest ranked submissions to sort of talk about what they came up with, how they came up with it, how it could be implemented within the digital edition of the guide. So a lot of information on this slide. I will post a PDF of this. We are trying to get word out about this. So if you within your network, if you can kind of share this opportunity, it might be geared towards the younger, on the younger side, college, junior, engineers and stuff like that. So, but we can also participate as well if you're so inclined. So please share this information. We are trying something new. I don't know if this has really taken place as part of an NCHRP project, but we'll see how it goes. So with that, let me turn it over to Laura Zale from SEPTA. And she is going to talk about she's the conference planning committee chair, and sort of give an overview about the overall conference. And she's doing great work leading the team. I'm part of the planning group, and all the other planning members are doing a great job as well. So Laura, turn it over to you.
Thanks, Matt. So what I'm here to do today is to talk to you all about why should I come to this conference? We've been through a few years of being able to attend conferences, travel all over the place from the comfort of our couches via the magic of Zoom, Teams, and whatnot. Why should I take the time and work with my agency to get travel to go to Boston? I'm going to give you a couple selling points to, I hope, help to sweeten the deal and make you want to come. So, first of all, this is the first time that this group of asset management professionals is going to be meeting in person since 2018. It has been 5 years since our last in-person conference. In a lot of ways, I'm really looking forward to seeing my asset management family in person again. It's been way too long. That being said, there has been so much growth in the industry since the last time we met. Speaking on behalf of the transit folks, most of us were just about to submit those first required transit asset management plans after the conference. Today, we are in a position where we've actually had to revise those plans and have our first official mandated update to those plans. A lot can happen in the industry in 5 years. And with that comes a lot of lessons learned, a lot of retrospective, and a lot of real good data that you can use to discuss and share with your peers as to what worked and what did not. I think we've all come and recognized there's still a lot of work to do. I was speaking to some of my colleagues about this, and it's been 11 years since the FTA put out the Transit Asset Management Rule. And we've been talking among ourselves on the planning committee, with TRB and everywhere else. Are we really where we thought we'd be 10 years from when we sat and heard that first rule? The reaction's been somewhat mixed. So while we have a lot of celebrating to do, a lot of things to update each other on, I think we're now in a position to think strategically about what we want to do next, both as an industry and also within our own agencies. In 5 years, yes, that's a long time to have passed. There's been a lot of turnover in our industry. So in addition to catching up with the TAMLE, having that TAMLE reunion, it's a good time to bring that next generation or that next wave of folks to the field to come and see who's doing the cool things in asset management that we didn't know we're going to be doing this back when we met in San Diego. TRB always puts on fantastic conferences. This is the 14th. And in some ways, this will be very similar to some of the things you may have seen in the past from TRB. Some things you might recognize is we have conference tracks, we have themes. The poster session and cocktail reception will still be there. We'll have some pre-conference workshops, and there'll be a lot of opportunity to interact with our peers. We have taken the approach of, once again, putting together a smaller than usual, but a really agile, really knowledgeable planning committee to put this conference together. We have folks from the DOT world. We have folks from the pooled fund states that have graciously funded a lot of the conference. We have members from the TRB Younger Members Forum. We have folks that work in the private sector as well to really bring a really holistic flavor to asset management to the agenda. That all being said, we wanted to shake some things up a little bit. We went through a lot of the post-conference feedback, a lot of the surveys that the AASHTO committee had put together, and we listened to things that people seem to want coming back to conferences after a few years of not being able to do so. This conference, I think, will be the first time we've really, really successfully been able to pull off a truly multimodal flavor to the conference. I remember, I'm going to date myself, the first time I went to one of these conferences, I went to the 9th in San Diego, and all of the transit people were kind of in this one little session together, and we kind of hung around with each other for the 3 days. This time around, the agenda will reflect true connectivity between DOT, with transit, with academia. All these folks will be collaborating and to share time on sessions in a way that I don't think that we had the opportunity to do before. We've heard loud and loud that people are really tired of sitting at a screen and being lectured at from a wall of PowerPoint. So whenever it was possible, we've tried very, very hard to put together interactive sessions. We've worked with the folks that have sponsored some of the sessions to develop some activities and to make sure that folks have that time to interact with each other. My takeaway from being in this industry for a while, it's really those personal conversations that you're having with your peers that really helps you to kind of crack those breakthroughs and the issues that you're dealing with at home. We've also talked about really, you'll see some tracks that might be similar to things that you've seen before. We've had a workforce and organizational track on the agenda for the last 2 or 3 conferences. We've really worked hard to focus on things that are actually demonstrative of changes that you can make at your agency. If you're going to come and hang out with us in Boston, we want you to be able to come home with some tools that you can implement at your agency. So there's been a lot of focus on getting content of that ilk onto the agenda. Matt just made me feel old by saying that perhaps I'm a little too old to hang out at the hackathon. On that ilk, we've invited a lot of the younger members forum to participate in the conference as well. There is a TAM competition where they will be evaluating culverts, assets that tend to fall through the cracks when people are talking about asset prioritization. And we will have our younger members having opportunities to present their work and the innovation that they bring to the table. We've also talked really hard about the things that have held us back as an industry. And one of that is there are things that are done outside of the typical asset management horizon that need to happen in order for your asset management program to be truly, truly successful. And to that end, we've invited some folks from other TRB committees to bring content. We're going to have, for example, a session on data visualization. We're going to have another session on innovation, and we're going to talk about equity and how to bring that to the table within an asset management framework. And finally, if I haven't sold you on this enough, if you want to have a party, if you want to have a conference, you want to do it in Boston. The folks at MassDOT and the MBTA are really pulling out the stops to bring a true New England flavor to this conference. And I think that is really fantastic. Boston has it all. It's a legacy city where they're doing a lot of redevelopment and planning. They have coastal impact. They have the oldest subway system in the country. So they're really, from a truly multimodal asset management perspective, I really can't think of a better place to have our TAMLE reunion. And Jack Moran, who you'll hear from later, you'll hear say, he made me feel old before I got on the phone today because he reminded me that the Big Dig, which was the project everyone was talking about when I was an undergrad, is now at its mid-year life. So now it's another time where the city of Boston is really taking an asset management perspective and deciding what to do next. I hope this gives you some information about overview about the conference, and I hope that that little teaser and the work that my team will be presenting today makes you excited to attend. Thank you.
Great.
Okay,
Thanks,
thanks.
Laura. Oh, and now we have Mike Johnson from Caltrans to talk about the TAM Peer Exchange.
Thanks, Matt. If Laura did not get everybody excited enough, we have yet another opportunity for you on that weekend. We are fortunate to have a peer exchange that is being sponsored by AASHTO and Federal Highway Administration. And the peer exchange is taking place the afternoon of the Saturday before the conference, and then another half day on Sunday morning, July 9th, up till noon. And then the conference, will kick in a full gear after that. So same venue, you're already going to be there, but this is an opportunity for all of you to get together with your peers from around the nation and to learn what they're doing, to share what you're doing, and generally, hopefully, take back to your agencies some ideas that can actually help you. Next slide. So this peer exchange, the theme is a little different than some of our last asset management work, where we focus more on the requirements or components of the TAM. This peer exchange is going to focus on the art of project selection. And the reason we chose this is because there's a lot of new emerging things that are coming out in this area, particularly with the passage of the bipartisan infrastructure law that is designating funding for things like carbon reduction programs or system resiliency. There's a lot of talk about equity in transportation. And so the peer exchange will look at how our agencies actually selecting projects in light of these different things that they're trying to hit. So it's, we've truly moved beyond just condition in our asset management work to more of a multi-objective type of look. So how are agencies around this country making these decisions right now? How are we prioritizing things? And how are we balancing these competing objectives? Next slide. So what do you get if you come to the peer exchange? Well, you get to, know your partners and peers in other states. And that's really important. Probably goes way beyond just the peer exchange, but to develop those relationships so that if you have questions after the conference on the topics of the peer exchange or anything else, you have a nationwide resource. Gain knowledge, share information, and really getting into some of the TAM-based prioritization that has started to get integrated into different agencies. So Laura mentioned there's been a lot of advancement since the last TAM conference, and it's certainly true in the area of balancing multiple objectives, looking at equity, looking at climate, looking at carbon reduction, and that's really what this peer exchange is all about. The other thing that you get if you participate in the peer exchange is you will be invited to the legendary scavenger hunt put on by Spy Pond in Hyanna Park. And this one, I say it's legendary because if you've ever participated in past scavenger hunts, it's a great way to get to know different cities. But I've actually never done one on Hyanna's back, her backyard in Boston. So I'm really looking forward to that and getting to solve some challenges with trivia and really getting to work with the network of asset management peers around the country outside of the formal conference setting. So if you come to the peer exchange, you get the scavenger hunt. If you don't come to the peer exchange, sorry. Next slide. And I'll just end on this note. If you've got your phones handy, you want to know how do I register for the peer exchange, get your camera out on your phone, the QR code here, take a picture of it or scan it, and it'll take you right to the registration form so that we can get you signed up. Everybody's welcome to attend. We do have an upper limit, but it's pretty high. So at this point, I don't know if we're going to hit our room size limit. I will say that for those of you that are members of the Transportation Services Program or the Pooled Fund project that's led through the Iowa DOT for the TAM conference, there is travel assistance available if needed. So if you fall into one of those groups, you should be getting additional information from either the TSP, the TSP managers or the pooled fund manager, as far as what your eligibility there is for the additional night of travel. So with that, I will turn it back over to you, Matt.
All right, thanks, Mike. Up next, I think it's gonna be a great peer exchange. Looking forward to it. Also the scavenger hunt as well. Hopefully I can participate. And with that, I want to introduce a new person we haven't seen yet. I'm sorry, joking. Laura Zale from SEPTA, who's all right. So Laura's going to talk more specifically about some of the workshops that are taking place on the weekend.
Sure. So thanks, Matt. In addition to the AASHTO peer exchange and the scavenger hunt, on Sunday, we will have a number of workshops. First of all, I do want to let folks who may be on the transit side of the world that the FTA is having their TAM roundtable in conjunction with this conference. It will be held all day on Sunday. And if you're on the Asset Management FTA site, I will let you know that my invitation to that got stuck in my spam folder. So please look for that. We'd encourage you to register for that. You do have to register for that event separately from the TRB conference. In addition to the FTA TAM Roundtable, we put together a few pre-conference workshops to really set the stage and also to have the time to have those conversations necessary to talk about some of these topics. Throughout the years of my work in the industry, we've had a lot of conversations about some of the things that you need to do to advance asset management are done with our allies throughout our agencies or throughout the community. To that end, the workshops are going to focus on the areas that those in the finance and engineering world typically don't do as much. We'll be focusing on data visualization, on communication, on scenario planning, and on crafting stories about asset management. I think a lot of us have had the experience where you work really hard and you collect all this data from throughout your system or throughout your roadway network, and you put together a presentation and it's so crystal clear, and then you deliver it to the folks, perhaps in the C-suite or your decision makers with your MPO, and they look at you like, oh, what's that? We're going to be workshopping specifically on asset management scenarios so that you have the tools to take that asset management, that data and finance and asset specific expertise and have those conversations with folks that aren't quite in the weeds as we all like to be with those data points. We will also be bringing that theme to the closing session as well. We'll be polling folks throughout the actual conference with things that they might hear at the conference, but they might not have an opportunity to, or not quite sure how to start at their agency. We are going to have a speaker who specifically specializes in organizational change management to talk to us about those things, making those wish list items of ours a reality. Also, I would be remiss, Meredith Hill would like people to know that there's also a Red Sox game that afternoon. So there'll be opportunities to socialize at that if you didn't get quite your fill of that with the scavenger hunt. Moving on to the actual body of the conference itself, this idea of how to set your organization up to support your asset management practice is one that we've really struggled with at the TRB community for a while to figure out how do we actually implement that. We are going to have, I believe it's 4 sessions on this very topic. And the first one is, again, goes back to that theme of looking back and looking forward. The submitted abstract title for that was TAM Travel. What will you tell your former self about asset management when you were getting started? And where do you see yourself as an agency 10 years from now? What are we going to be doing at that 2033 Asset Management Conference? We hear a lot about asset management, about getting corporate buy-in. How do we get the buy-in from our executives to enact these changes? And we are going to have a session based about that very topic, talking about, have we really earned the credibility that we as an industry think that we need? And how do we get there if we have not gotten that yet? We'll be spending some time specifically with some of our federal partners. The FTA and AASHTO and FHWA will be presenting information about both legislation as well as some asset-specific presentations. Particularly, there'll be one on geotechnical asset management, which is a flavor of asset management in and of itself. Finally, again, really focusing on how we can take these topics home. We will be talking at the closing session on how to earn that buy-in and use the information that we've learned and discussed throughout the last few days and bring that home and have the rubber hit the road when we get back home to do our asset management at our agency. And with that, I think I'm passing it on to Matt Halbrook. Or no, back to Matt Hardy, another stranger.
One of the Matt H's. So yeah, up next is Matt Halbrook from Iowa DOT, who's going to be talking about the actionable TAMPs track. So Matt, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, Connor, I am getting the message I'm not unable to share my screen. Oh, wait a minute. There we go. There we go. Are you seeing that now?
All good. Yep.
Okay. So with this, I'm going to kind of dive into the tracks or the themes that are kind of woven into the fabric of the conference. And this is the point at which you have to make some choices as you're attending the conference about which sessions you're going to attend. Because there'll be multiple different concurrent sessions going on in a breakout format. So what I want to encourage you to do is to just ignore everything else and just think of the letter P. When you look at your program, you're going to see all of the sessions that are in the actionable asset management plans track that are going to be labeled with the letter P. So I would ask you to please plan to partake in Pleasant Parlay with preeminent professionals. So what is the purpose of the actionable asset management plan track? Well, we're going to focus on, as you might expect, asset management plans with a bias towards action. And this series of fantastic sessions will include some lectern sessions. We'll have some posters. But we're also going to, as Laura kind of alluded to earlier, we're looking at some ways that we can make things a little bit more interactive. And so we're looking to include a number of panel discussions. We're going to encourage a lot of dialogue and question and answer. And we're even looking to incorporate sort of an unconference style facilitated conversation so that you'll be seeing all of those as part of this particular track. So now let me kind of dive in a little bit on those specific sessions that are planned to be part of this track. First, one on asset valuation, actionable asset valuation. I'll give you a little bit more information about that in a moment. But we have two others that I've listed on this slide, including one called All Together Now. That one I think is going to be really great. It's going to start to look at the coordination of asset management planning efforts across modes and also across agencies. Many of us at the state level or in other agencies, we sort of all struggled to just get our first asset management plan done back in the 2018 timeframe. And I think now, as we are looking ahead, we're looking at those opportunities where we can start to work together across modes or across agencies to move our asset management planning efforts forward. And so that'll be a highlight of this particular breakout session. We're also, when I first came to an asset management conference way back in 2012, the one Laura previously mentioned, the one in San Diego, that before the most recent one in San Diego, the one in 2012, there was a pavements track and a bridges track, and we were pretty focused on those primary assets, and that makes a lot of sense, I think. But as we've evolved, I think that there's a lot of interest in looking at other types of assets. That generally we kind of have put under the umbrella of ancillary assets, but there's a lot of action going on in that world right now. I think we've all heard a lot of folks talking about other assets beyond pavements and bridges, and that will be the focus of a session that we're planning in this track. We're also going to still be having a heavy focus on those key assets that are critical and the most valuable from a point of view, from a dollar perspective. And so that will include our bridges, which we'll have a session on effective bridge management, bringing forward a number of highlights from some research work and other activities going on related to the topic of bridge management and how we can more effectively incorporate bridge management practices into our overall asset management structure, in particular in the plan development process. And then also those linear assets. And for those of us on the highway side, often those are pavements. And then for the transit side, oftentimes would include a track or other types of linear assets. But we're looking to put together a great session that will focus on those linear assets and how we can best manage those and incorporate those into our asset management plans. And then we're also looking to incorporate one on how do we measure the success of our asset management plans. Within the federal highway regulations, we have an annual report that we have to submit that shows that we have we can demonstrate that we've implemented our asset management processes. That's a great start, but I think there's a lot of interest in looking at how we can help tell that story. Laura earlier mentioned about the executive leadership, and it's going beyond just sort of a box checking exercise into how can we really demonstrate that we have implemented our asset management processes and what benefits we're receiving from the work that we're doing in asset management. So those are some key points of interest that you'll find if you just go to the P labeled sessions. One particularly provocative possibility that I wanted to kind of dive a little bit deeper on is about actionable asset valuation. And I mentioned that earlier. This session will be a great opportunity to learn about the NCHRP Project 2306. And that is produced this guide, the computation and use of system level valuation of transportation assets. That guide has been published. It's on web only document 335. So if you kind of search up, NCHRP document 335 or NCHRP 2306, you'll come to that document. There's also a great web-based resource at assetvalueguide.com that summarizes all of the information that's available from the guide. In fact, I think it also links to that document. So it's a great online resource. If you're interested in the topic of asset valuation, this will be a great session where we're going to dig deep into that topic. We're going to hear from folks who have been looking at how they can use asset valuation in their asset management practice. And we're really excited about this session. And so I wanted to put a special emphasis on this. I believe this will be the first time that we've really had a presentation on the work that was done by NCHRP 2306. And so pretty excited to have this as part of our track. So with that, I would just want to say, I hope you're pumped to participate. Just remember P, and you'll find some great sessions there. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Matt, and all of your P words. It's positively great pontificating. I don't know, I'm trying to think of P words to rhyme, but anyways. So up next, we have Emily Burns to talk about the R&R track. So I'm not sure if you have some alliteration there, Emily, coming up for the risk and resilience track, but Emily Burns from the city of Seattle.
How on earth will you choose your P's and your R's? So I'm going to talk a little bit about risk and resilience track. make sure I can share my screen properly. Give me just a second. I apologize. Okay, excellent. I'm hoping everybody can see that now.
Yep, looks good.
Okay, and unfortunately, I can't see the other portion of my slide, so please give me a minute. Okay, fantastic. So Matt, wonderful, wonderful introduction to some of the options that you're going to have. But I want to think about a little bit about risk and resilience, and risk and it's what's for dinner. This is often a component of your TAM plan, and maybe the TAM plan is your dessert. So risk, it's that dinner piece, it's that last piece that often happens as you're completing your TAM plans. But it's also a lot about implementation. What is your appetite for risk, and what is on your plate for resilience? At its core, risk management involves this identification and mitigation of these threats. They can be positive, they can be negative. There's uncertainty, variability on objectives. We want to be able to give you some tools to manage that uncertainty, manage those variabilities, those threats, those hazards. What can we do to identify and develop support that's needed and research to enable your agencies to implement risk management practices? These sessions are going to be designed to create a very collaborative and interactive forum for transportation practitioners to manage, visualize, and communicate risk while networking with others on how to implement or improve agency maturity by using risk management strategies. You heard a little bit from Laura Zale about how we wanted to go a little bit back to the drawing board on how we were going to present this conference. We want it to be incredibly interactive and engaging. We want to trigger all those parts of your brain, not just the listening parts or the seeing parts, but the engagement parts, so that you can do kinesthetic learning and take these things back to your agencies. So we have a specific workshop that's dedicated for risk and resilience. It's going to be very hands-on. We're going to have some instructions that are going to be provided for those that potentially want to prepare, so ahead of time. But we're going to have it's going to be moderated by your Matt Hardy. And then it's going to play a really friendly competition using visualization and business case storytelling to answer some of these questions of what is the value of investing in a more resilient transportation system? How do you apply visualization? What are some tools and techniques available to communicate your business case to leaders? And we're going to have some experts in the field. Frank Braun is going to talk to us about NCHRP Synthesis 584, and these are visualization best practices. We're going to have the principal investigators from NCHRP 20-127, which is the business case and communication strategies for state DOT resilience efforts. They're going to talk to us about exercises and lead us through our visualization and business cases. And then participants are going to have about 90 minutes to develop their business cases. And then we'll have some critiques. Those top three are going to advance and talk about it in the session. And then we'll have more time to weigh in and have different visualizations and critiques on what works and what doesn't. Are we getting to the right audience? So Matt mentioned looking for P's. Go ahead and look for those R's. R1, the first session we have that kicks off Monday morning, is going to be another workshop, but it's a mini workshop, so a smaller amount of time at looking at tactical risk management. And it's going to be facilitated by Todd Shepard, who is relatively new to the transportation arena. It's going to have opportunities to set up risk assessments, really, again, very hands-on, learning about decision-making processes and information that's needed. How do you get comfortable with uncertainty, and then reducing uncertainty by potentially quantifying something that was previously thought to be unmeasurable. So getting really comfortable with what we don't know to be able to at least move forward and do decision-making. because making better estimates and exploring where bad estimates come from is going to help to help with some things like resistance to framing and overconfidence, risk perception, personal bias, and the like. And we'll look at myths as well. Our next session on Monday is going to be building infrastructure resilience and how do we adapt to those unknown unknowns. Again, really looking at resilience at the resilience side, but a lecture format in this case, and then a panel discussion afterwards, addressing some of these key risk and resilience topics, from impact of wildfires on pavement to FHWA's ShakeCast. This is an automated warning system for monitoring seismic activity and alerting stakeholders to post-event inspections. And then finally, we're going to have a multimodal resilience concerns and asset management presentation by Maryland. Our next session on the last session on Monday is going to be the buck starts here, using risk to inform decisions. William Johnson is going to take us through risk workshops and management approaches to the Utah, including Utah DOT's managing risk through the TAM. So even though it's not in the TAM sessions, you're definitely going to have that overlap. And then how to maximize capital planning from WashDOT. And we're going to have a session on, we're going to have a session on incorporating risk workshops into the risk management process from multimodal perspectives. And then we'll get those capital spending plans, how to compile data, and then finally, the feedback loop of making better decisions for service delivery. Our session, so this is actually on Tuesday, is going to be visualizing communicating risk, telling the story of why it matters. This really takes and synthesizes that workshop that we had on Sunday with another snapshot on the NCHRP synthesis for visualizing best practices. We're going to hear from those top 3 presenters that provided their case studies and their visualizations. And then we're going to be able to do a little bit more critiquing on those visualizations through things like Mentimeter, what works and what doesn't for the intended audience. And then finally, we're going to have some great case studies presented on what has caught fire in agencies working through the NCHRP project 20-127 in a way that does visualization and storytelling. Also on Tuesday, we're going to have a session on learning from others. It's so helpful to look outside of our usual partners to see what's coming out of academia, out of wastewater, stormwater industry, and then internationally on what we can do to quantify and address risks. And then our last session is going to be on these new technologies. And I'm kind of excited to see how this is going to come out. We're going to have this sort of fun and unique take on an Oxford style debate and asking some questions like, what new technologies will or won't revolutionize? I think there's some really exciting, very sexy things that are coming out. But often working in a DOT, we may or may not have R&D dollars to be able to do that work and go out and just grab those technologies. But what can we potentially do within our frameworks, within our budgets, and what works and what potentially doesn't? So we're going to hear about incorporating lifecycle costing, risk, sustainability into systems. We're going to hear a little bit about digital twins for risk management. And then finally, to BIM or not to BIM, and how we can apply that in practice. That's all I have, and I'll turn it back to Matt.
Great, thanks, Emily. Yeah, we're going to try that Oxford style debate. I'm not sure if people here, they tried it at the TRB annual meeting, talking about some level of service performance measures. It was interesting. It was jam-packed room, so hopefully we will get the same thing at the TAM conference. So trying something a little bit new. Up next is Victor Rivas from Jacobs, and he's going to talk to us about the sustainability track. So Victor, all yours.
Thank you, Matt. Hello, everyone. It's a pleasure for me to share what we are preparing on the sustainability track of the conference. The sessions are designed to highlight the building blocks that contribute to more sustainable and resilient transportation operations. The sessions will focus on asset management sustainability from different lenses, namely resilience and social equity. The third session provides an opportunity for the conference participants to learn firsthand about the Transportation Asset Management Expert Task Group and some of the group's recent products. Finally, there will be a workshop designed to highlight the multifactorial and complex resilience planning process as it relates to asset management. The first session, titled Sustainability and Resilience, will highlight an MPO study that provides a framework to systematically identify, assess, and respond to risks to transportation-related infrastructure. The session will show established tender resilience analysis methodology consisting of 9 steps. The analysis methodology applies a holistic, system-level approach that considers surrounding areas and communities, helping to identify and address network vulnerabilities and to support the incorporation of preparedness into project planning, design, and construction. Initially, the methodology was applied to 4 stressors selected by the MPO, namely precipitation, temperature, storm surge, and sea level rise. What is really remarkable about this is that the methodology is flexible and repeatable, that can be applied to any stressor, geographic areas, and subset of infrastructure. The session will include a review of an FHWA soon-to-be-released handbook entitled Addressing Resilience to Climate Change and Extreme Weather in TAM. The presentation will walk the audience through the major points included in the handbook, which is designed to help transportation practitioners incorporate natural hazards resilience into asset management. Finally, the session incorporates a case study from the UK. The UK Highways Authority, National Highways, has 2 major change programs running in parallel. These programs are the Asset Management Transformation Program and the Net Zero Carbon Plan. At the interface of these 2, they're using ESG goals to prioritize works according to stated objectives, driving lower whole life costs, improving the environmental footprint of the highway network, and the ways in which assets are managed. This exciting segment will showcase both programs at the national highways and how they intersect to deliver decarbonization. In addition, this segment will cover initiatives planned and underway, how the programs were set up, conceived, and are governed today, the successes so far, and then share lessons learned and plans for the future. The second session centers around sustainability and social equity. To better understand how social equity can be incorporated into TAM, the session will present a study that explores how TAM practitioners perceive equity. This presentation highlights a nationwide survey conducted with asset managers from transportation agencies and cities. The survey findings are expected to add to the body of knowledge, as other transportation surveys only address equity in the context of transit planning and general transportation practice. This session also features a state transit agency methodology used to score capital project submissions that leverages both existing equity analysis used for service development and standard project submittal process in which key information about the projects is collected. By combining these 2 scoring methodologies, projects can be evaluated both based on location and by the means in which a project will be delivered. The location-based evaluation uses the agency's service equity framework, which considers the location of underserved populations. The session features how the city of Dallas is developing a methodical repeatable and transparent approach to defining areas of inequity, prioritizing projects in those areas, and balancing the remaining infrastructure investments to ensure an appropriate level of service for the full pavement network. This study compares two analysis methods for including equity in asset management systems analysis using real-world data. Finally, the session highlights how the Interstate Bridge Replacement Program incorporates community priorities relating to equity and climate into its critical decisions, actions, and final outcomes. The third session of this track will give the conference participants the opportunity to engage with the Transportation Asset Management Expert Task Group. The session will showcase some of the group's recent products. As background, FHWA formed this group back in 2012 to identify outreach activities and other initiatives that would further increase the awareness of asset management among state highway agencies, and to advance the implementation and use of asset management principles. This group has developed many products in support of asset management, including a strategic plan framework, an introductory video to asset management practice, and several white papers and case studies. Recently, the group has been working to develop a series of white papers and case studies on diverse topics, including the consideration of equity in transportation asset management and approaches to managing assets in fair condition. Should you have questions, comments, or would like to share ideas on the sustainability track of this conference, please reach out and let us know. Thank you. And with that, I'll turn it over back to Matt.
Great, thanks, Victor. That's the S track. So we'll do some alliteration at some point for all the S's. We're going to work on that maybe for the opening session. We don't know. We have some little surprises in play, I think, to have some fun at the conference. So with that, last but not least, we're going to have Jack Moran from MassDOT. And I was trying to figure something out here. All I got was talk about the beautiful and bountiful Boston. And I couldn't think of any more B's to go along with that. I apologize, but that's kind of what I came up with. But Jack, as the host, sort of state DOD, is going to talk a little about what's going on in Boston, all the other fun things that you can do there when you come to the conference. So with that.
Thank you, Matt. My audio is working fine. Just a
yes,
note in my head. Thank you. Well, good afternoon. I'm very happy to be here. As Matt mentioned, my name is Jack Moran. I work for the Massachusetts Department of Transportation, and on behalf of my Massachusetts transportation colleagues, both with MBTA, MassDOT, and all of our partners throughout the state, we're very, very excited to have this conference in our backyard. And as a lifelong suburban Boston resident, I'm reasonably qualified to provide some suggestions to help enrich your stay in the city. You know, certainly look at TripAdvisor, but I have some personal recommendations, and I hope you find them helpful. So let's jump in, and we'll start with some of the classic offerings of the city. So I guess we should probably start off with the Red Sox. Certainly a venerable institution within Boston. Just a short walk from Copley Square, you'll find Fenway Park, built in 1912, oldest operating ballpark in the major leagues, and near constant tinkering has kept that park in good working order, and also added some modern amenities and improved the surroundings. So I think for both the purist and casual fan, it's a great take. Whether you choose to purchase some tickets, I see there are still some available. The Oakland A's are in town Saturday and Sunday, or I would definitely just recommend, if you have the time, to just really mosey on down to that general area, Lansdowne Street. There's plenty of restaurants, plenty of activities, a lively atmosphere. And it's certainly a contagious day if you make it down there. Another one really on the top of my personal list is our duck tours. I know these aren't unique to Boston. I've been reminded of that, but it's first stop for whenever I'm bringing folks into town. I think it's a great way to see the city. Essentially repurposed World War II landing crafts will guide you through the city streets. Very competent drivers, probably not paid enough, and you'll be accompanied by a tour guide with wit, will dispense history and trivia on the neighborhoods you'll pass through and every single landmark along the way. And then, you know, as suggested, the amphibious trip will take you into the Charles River, which is a graceful body of water. And from that vantage point, I think it really offers a great perspective on the city, the Back Bay, and many of the major elements of infrastructure. Actually, you really get a up close and personal view, and children are offered the chance to take the wheel while in the water. And I have it on good authority that if more mature people want to have a go of it, if you aren't too proud to ask, you can steer the duck boat. So definitely a worthy take. And for those with an affinity for Italian food, of course, the Boston North End, our Little Italy, is a great destination. It's a little under a half a square mile, and there are over 100 restaurants of Italian fare and certainly other offerings as well. So this is a great destination for those taking a stroll on up the Rose Kennedy Greenway, which I'll talk about in a bit. And you can go find yourself a nice chicken parm, and you know, I would encourage a stop at Mike's or Modern Pastries, so you can pick a side on the long-running cannoli war that really has torn many families apart in Massachusetts. So North End is definitely worth the stop. And I think I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the Freedom Trail. This is a really almost a rite of passage for many of us growing up in the area, but this is a marked path through the city, about 2.5 miles long. Numerous stops along the way. There's a few different ways you can enjoy this. There are guided tours if you so choose to take one. You can use a GPS enabled audio experience, and I think from personal experience, it's a pretty big endeavor to take it all in one day. So I would encourage you to maybe use it as a framework as you move about the city, and that would allow you to weave in some history during your stay. Those looking for maybe a more refined experience in the city, we do offer a host of renowned museums, from fine art to science and natural history. Really, Boston isn't a big city, so all of these are destinations well within striking distance in a half day, or choosing your path wisely. So encourage everyone to just check out their websites. They keep them current with exhibits, and certainly take one of these in while you're here. Out to the waterfront, we have a long seafaring history in Boston, and there's, on a given summer day, I think one of the best places to be is on the water. Matt has said we're expecting good favorable weather, so we might be looking for an ocean breeze to cool off. Low effort engagement. The Harbor Walk is a great way to experience the waterfront. It'll take you from Charlestown all the way down into the seaport, really kind of weaving in amongst buildings and different neighborhoods and the like. So that's an easy way to experience Boston Harbor. For those looking for a more ambitious jaunt into the ocean, the Boston Harbor Cruises offers frequent trips out to the surrounding islands, or just an out and back to see Castle Island and out past Logan Airport. This is often something that I do with folks from out of town. It's you can book the trips in advance. They're short, and you can really see the city from a much different vantage point, and it's definitely a nice experience. To the north, I would definitely recommend any history lovers coming up to Boston to check out the Charlestown Navy Yard, where you'll find the USS Constitution, also known as Old Ironsides. oldest operating ship in the world, I'm told. And the ship itself is closed Monday and Tuesday, but the museum is open every day, and the museum itself is excellent. Moving on to shopping. So we welcome contributions to our local economy, and there's great opportunities to test the capacity of your travel luggage through shopping. So really a short walk from Copley is Newbury Street. I think it's a well-known shopping destination. On Sundays in the summer, it's often an open street, which means they close it to traffic. I have not seen definitive proof of that as yet in my searches, but it's something to keep in mind, because obviously that's a great way to sneak in a few hours with the people of the city and do a little shopping as well. Quincy Market is really a very renowned tourist destination. I think that's in a good way. It's equal parts shopping, equal parts street entertainers, and history. So that's a great location, very close to the waterfront, North End, and the City Hall. I mean, everything's pretty much close to itself, so I don't want to belabor that point, but also on Sunday, south of Washington Street Market. That's a great event that's put on, and you'll find local artists, stalls, artisans, and food trucks. So that would be on Sunday. So I would be remiss if I didn't tie in some transportation themed activities here. So I have a few that I could recommend along those lines. And first and foremost, I think a trip on the newly opened extension of the MBTA Green Line light rail network would be on the top of my list. Obviously, you'll get to see a state-of-the-art system and successful project. A lot of effort, a lot of history of why that project was built. You know, I think that in and of itself is worth it. But then also, just outside of Boston, cities of Somerville and Medford, where the Green Line extension services. Great locations if you're looking for maybe a good restaurant or just another look of kind of the greater Boston metropolitan area. So great trip, great opportunity there. Another one would be the Southwest Corridor. Southwest Corridor was originally conceived to be a location for an interstate highway that was actually reconsidered in early history. This is probably the 70s, 80s, I believe. Well, it now carries our transit lines and a multi-use path. So for those looking to get some exercise and again, see a different part of the city, you can take a blue bike down and my colleagues in the MBTA will bring you right back. As Laura mentioned earlier, the Big Dig has left a big mark on our city, and I would point to probably the Rose Kennedy Greenway as being one of the bigger imprints that project has left. So essentially, it's a linear park on top of the I-93 tunnels, which were built by the artery, and in the process taking down a steel viaduct which formerly shadowed this land. So obviously, that's a whole nother topic, but the impacts of that to development and the seaport and the city itself are large. And I think a good way to experience that is through a nice walk up the Rose Kennedy Greenway. And there are a lot of activities along that park, and it's a good jumping off point to other features mentioned in this presentation. And then finally, for the transit enthusiasts, the MBTA operates the Mattapan high-speed line, which contains PCC streetcars, historical, I believe, 1930s era streetcars. Now, this might be a little bit of a journey, but I think for those interested, you'll see another part of the city, and obviously an experience with some legacy infrastructure still earning its keep today. So I hope these recommendations are helpful, and you know, again, hoping for great weather, but you know, we're very excited to have this conference up in Boston. Hope to see you at the conference and around town as well. Back to you, Matt.
Great, thanks, Jack. Yeah, I'm going to do the bike thing. So if anybody wants to join me, let me know if we can get something organized. I think with that, we have a quick little Mentimeter. So this is the Q&A, or if you have any questions, Any comments, any thoughts, ideas, let us know. But thought we would do a quick Mentimeter survey to see where people are. So give me a second to share my screen. All right, and if you go to, we'll do a quick little, oops, let me go to the first question here. So if you go to menti.com and type in the code 3966-8155, and I'll put that in the chat as well, if I can find it. We're just curious where people are when it comes to attending the conference. If you've ever been to one, how many have you been to? So I put the link in the chat so you have that. Ooh, we got somebody that's 5. I was gonna put the years on here, but then I was trying to do it real quick and I couldn't remember the years that these were happening or had happened. I think my first one was in San Diego, I think when Laura attended as well. Great. So if you have any questions, please put them in the unconference. Yes, the unconference counts, Shannon. The one that kind of happened, I think, in COVID. Those count. All right. So don't be shy. All right, so a lot of people, well, I mean, 23 people have voted. We have a couple 6+ers, 5, and then other people who have not been to one. So hopefully the people that have not been to one will be able to attend this conference, which gets into our next question. Oops, click the slide. So the next question is, are you attending the 14th National TRB TAM Conference? So we have 4 options there. Somebody was quick in saying no. Yes, we're registering, ready. Yes, still getting the okay, maybe working on it, or no. Just curious. All right. All right, I think seems about good. So we got about 13, 17, so 20 people saying yes, they are. Some are working on it. I think if you are from a state DOT, I know that there are options, travel to get some travel funding. Mike Johnson did say that all are welcome to attend the peer exchange. It's really focused on the state DOTs, I would say, and there is some funding opportunity available for the state DOTs that are either a member of the pooled fund that Iowa, Matt Halbrick is sponsoring, or the AASHTO Transportation Performance Management Technical Service Program. And if you have questions about either of those, you can email. I can help answer them for you, but you can also contact Matt Halbrick as part of the organizer for the pooled fund. And then we have our last question here. What are you most looking forward to? I think this is should be a fill in the. There we go. Should be open-ended question. Seeing the Tamale, yes. I did the Mentimeter last minute, so. Practical solutions. Seeing William Johnson, the real William Johnson. Latest trends. Fenway, managing Fenway. I wonder if that was Meredith. Is Meredith on? Cannolis, workshops.
Yes, I am, and I concur.
All right. Right. Well, people can keep on typing in their answers. What are they most looking forward to? But also wanted to see if there are any other. Tying GAM to TAM, so geotechnical asset management to transportation asset management. Scroll down here a little bit. Oh, the Oxford debate. Yes, that's going to be fun. Hopefully. Right. Are there? I guess at this point, if there are any other, if the presenters want to turn their cameras on, I don't know if anybody else had any questions for the presenters or about the sessions that they wanted to get more information on. I think most of the sessions are are getting fleshed out at this point. There might be some flexibility if somebody has a really good idea or presentation that they want to try to share. There might be some room. I don't know, but I don't see any questions coming in the chat. I don't see anybody's hands up at this point. So let me.
So Matt, yeah, I did want to just offer one clarification for what I think Mike had to leave, but I think just to clarify, I think he mentioned kind of an open invitation for the peer exchange. I wanted to clarify it is an invitation kind of thing. We are mostly targeting state DOTs, so I think what he meant is everybody from a DOT should be able to attend. So sorry for that kind of miscommunication there, but the peer exchange is an opportunity for the DOTs to come together and kind of talk about issues that we're all wrestling with. And obviously there'll be a lot of other great content going on during the conference, but did want to kind of make sure that was clear to everyone. So, if you have any questions about that, please don't hesitate to reach out to Mike or me. We can help answer your questions and see if we can, if you're eligible to be invited to that peer exchange.
All right, thanks for that, Matt.
Yeah.
All right, anything else from anybody? Well, let me stop sharing my screen. We do have some closing slides here. So Connor, if you can bring us back, I appreciate that. All right, let me find my other document. There we go. All right, so I want to thank everybody for participating today. I know we're all busy, and to spend an hour and a half with the group, takes a lot out of your schedule. So thank you very much for that. So with that, we have our next TAM webinar, the last one before the conference. I'm sure we'll be talking about that a little bit more at the next bi-monthly webinar. It's going to be on June 21st at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Actually, daylight standard time at that point. So the topic of TAM webinar number 63 is consistency reporting, something that I guess state DOTs are having to do, in reporting asset management. So you will hear from us soon about the next 4 after that in the schedule. Again, these happen every other month on the even months, the 3rd Wednesday of the month. So please plan on joining us, or the 4th. I'm getting confused. The 4th Wednesday, no, the 3rd Wednesday of the month. If you know, 4th Wednesday, sorry, next one is June 21st. I know that. And in the odd months, that's when we have our TPM webinar series. So if you're interested in performance management, please join us for those as well. All of the information about the webinars can be found at the TAM portal, tam-portal.com or tpm-portal.com. You can register for all the webinars, sign up for them, and that sort of thing. And again, if you have any ideas or topics that you want to have covered during these webinars, please let us know. It helps us sort of organize it and make sure that we can tailor content, examples, learning, all that good stuff to what you want to hear, what you want to learn about. So with that, again, thank you very much. Thanks to FHWA for being a great partner. Thanks to AASHTO for being a great partner. I know Matt Hauberg, any closing remarks from you?
I think you covered it pretty well, Matt. Definitely appreciate everyone turning out today for the webinar. This has been a fantastic addition to our series, and in spite of my involvement in it, it's turned out very well. So I want to say thank you to everyone who helped make this happen, and appreciate the hard work that went on behind the scenes to pull this together. So
great, thanks, Matt. And Tasha, as our FHWA partner, any closing remarks from you?
No, I'm just excited. We have celebrated a 62nd webinar today. Very excited about that. So I commend everyone again behind the scenes, and just so excited that we still have so many people that are interested in participating in these webinars. So I just want to say thank you to everyone. Thank you for your time today.
Great, thanks, Tasha. And finally, just because it was all about the conference, Laura Zale, as the planning committee chair for that conference, anything from you?
I just want to say thank you all for attending. I hope that you're excited about coming. I want to thank my committee who took the time to present today. And I want to thank you all for the platform in which to do a little bit of a different type of promotion that we haven't been able to do before.
Great. And I think with that, thanks, Laura. I think with that, we'll call it to a close. We look forward to seeing you in 2 months or even before then. So thanks. Have a great rest of the week, a great rest of the month, and all that good stuff. Talk with you later. Bye.